Hello everyone, welcome to another live event coming to you from, I was going to say sunny Scotland, but actually I would be lying. It would be an untruth if I said sunny Scotland. Please let us know where you are joining us from, that you can hear me okay. Jump into the comments before we get started. Let's make sure that everything is working smoothly. So jump into the comments and let me know. And whilst we're waiting for someone to let us know that you guys can hear us loud and clear, I will continue with my weather chat because we had a lovely walk this morning and it was actually nicer this morning than it is now, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty nice.
But there was this beautiful field and it was completely full of buttercups. It was like a sea of yellow and it was so beautiful. And I took a little video of Quincy. Oh, amazing, Rosie's here. That's wonderful. I'm glad you can hear us. I took a little video of, hi Melanie, Quincy, and it's on my Instagram stories if anyone wants to go and have a look, but he's so cute because the buttercups had actually grown really tall. Hi Moong from Belgium, great to see you. And he was bouncing, hi Lynn, he was bouncing through the buttercups and it's just such a lovely video. I really like it. So just saying, you can go and have a little watch of Quincy jumping through the buttercups. It's really nice. The sun is shining for you, Linda. Well, you just had to rub it in, didn't you? You just had to rub it in from down in Englandshire. Anyway, let's stop the jibber jabber chat because we have someone very special with us today. I'm very excited to introduce her. I've got my notes here. This is a really exciting interview because this is a harpist who was introduced to me by one of our How to Harp members. And so in How to Harp, we do always encourage our members to come forward and give us requests and let us know what they would like to see and hear within the How to Harp membership. And this was one of our requests. And as soon as I looked her up, I thought, she sounds like the kind of person that we want to have in the membership. Her music is beautiful, really emotive, and she gives some really great tips on her YouTube channel. So, Minnesota-based harpist is with us. She's a performer and a teacher, as well as an arranger of her own music. And her interests lie in Celtic and classical music. And so you can expect here a mixture of Scottish and Irish music and some Bach and Debussy in her playing. She's particularly interested in medieval and French sounding music, which sounds right up my street. Now, at the age of 12, she won first prize in the McAllister Scottish Country Harp competition. Wowee! In St Paul's, and she was named the most promising harpist. She then went on to study and achieve her BM in harp performance from the University of Minnesota. Now, she has since toured or played with a number of different orchestras. She has created 5 solo albums, which is me and William were talking before this interview and we were like, that's a lot of albums. That's amazing. 5 albums, as well as a number of sheet music books, lots of arrangements that we'll be talking about later on in this interview. And so without further ado, can you all please welcome the amazing Stephanie Clausen. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We're absolutely delighted that you could join us. And I'm just excited about finding out all about your backstory, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So we heard in the little introduction there that you won a very prestigious prize at a very young age, 12 years old. I wasn't even playing harp at the age of 12. So that's just amazing. But can you take us back to when you first started harp? What attracted you to the instrument and how you got into playing it?
You know, I don't have a story like many harpists where they saw the instrument and were in love with it and they said, oh, I want to play that. Mine started because my next door neighbor was a professional harp teacher.
Oh.
And so my parents thought this would be very convenient.
I love it.
So, yeah, my dad was also working as a graphic designer for the company Music Makers, which builds
Oh,
harp kits. So actually, other way, that harp was a music maker's kit that my dad ended up building when I was 7.
wow.
And my sister and I started taking lessons from my harp teacher, Kathy Victorson, who lived next door. So we just walked across the driveway to harp lessons every week. It was perfect. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And you know, you're right, that is not like most people's harp story because most people want to learn the harp and then can't find a harp teacher. Well, one lives 5 hours away, maybe we can go there, but right next door, that is so convenient. What a lucky, lucky chance.
It worked out so well. And I don't remember feeling particularly excited or not excited about it. It was just something my parents said, you're going to start music lessons. And I thought, great, this will be fine. I feel like it was later that I actually fell in love with the harp, many years later, when I was thinking about what do I want to do as a career.
Mm-hmm.
For years,
Mm-hmm.
I had said harp is fun, but I don't want to do it for work because it's fun. And then
Absolutely.
right around university, I was thinking, actually, I pretty much enjoy this more than anything else that I can picture myself doing. So
Okay.
started.
So it was at university. So you were already studying harp when you decided that that's what you wanted to do as a career, or was it actually just before that?
So actually, yeah, I started harp lessons when I was 7
Mm-hmm.
and was taking lessons this whole time. Um, and actually, I started gigging when I was 12 because it's a wonderful way to make some money on the side,
Mm-hmm.
playing for background gigs and nursing homes, and yeah, and then in high school, I was considering career paths. What
Mm-hmm.
should I try major in? And
Mm-hmm.
my parents were self-employed, and so I had this vision of what it looks like to be your own boss, to kind of chart your own career path. That was
Mm-hmm.
very helpful in me understanding what it's like to be a harp player, musician.
Mm.
Uh, yeah.
Nice. And you said that you took lessons and your sister also took lessons. So I'm interested to know, is your sister a harpist now? Does she still play? What's happening with your sister?
She's a creative writer,
Oh,
and so
cool.
she decided to follow that as her creative outlet, whereas I stuck with the music. And we actually live together, so she hears harp music all day long. She has her
Wow.
fill.
Oh, yeah. Willie probably feels like that as well. Hey, Willie.
I hear a bit of harp music,
Just a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Nice. So a very creative family then. Has there always
Mm.
been that kind of creative energy, even if it maybe wasn't music, but just that general creative energy around you from a young age?
Yeah, my mom was or not a harpist. I'm the harpist. My mom was an artist, so painter, and she also did some more abstract and installation style art pieces. And
Wow.
my dad did design work, both architectural design and then some graphic design. And they worked from home.
Amazing.
They were on their own bosses. So yeah, very uh, high value set on creative expression in my
Of course. An artist, a harpist, a creative writer, and an architect. I mean, you guys have got it all.
family.
That's amazing. That's lovely. Really nice. So, you mention, and also by hearing your music, I've had the great privilege to research ready for this interview. So, I've been listening to lots of your music, but you're interested in Celtic music and classical music. So, where did those interests come from? Did your parents play music at home, on the radio and things like this, or was it all your teacher? Where's Celtic and classical come from?
Initially, it was just, well, mostly, I'll say a majority Celtic because of my teacher, Kathy Victorson. We started out working on traditional tunes, a lot of Sylvia Woods books got us started, and Sue Richards books later on. And I just loved that kind of music. And when it came time to actually study at the university level, at the time there were not many options for Celtic music on the university level. If I wanted to get a degree in harp, I was going to have to either move to like the 2 schools that offered a lever harp degree in the United States, or to get a pedal harp degree. And somebody gave me the good advice. I don't remember who said this. They just said a classical degree will not ruin you as a folk musician. You can still, you can learn all of this, and then you can choose your path going forward. But in the process of getting my degree and studying pedal harp for the first time and learning all this classical repertoire, I really fell in love with the pedal harp. And so now I'm doing both. I love my Celtic music still, and then I love my pedal harp too. It's right over here.
Amazing. So that's so interesting. So you really started with the lever harp, and then the pedal harp came as that decision to kind of study in a very formal education environment. So I'm interested to know then, because I know we have a lot of people who play lever harp for quite some time and maybe consider playing the pedal harp but aren't quite sure. So how was that transition? Because you obviously were already at a very high standard on the lever harp before university. What was it like to then go to the pedal harp?
It maybe was an easier transition than I expected it to be. I basically started working 6 months before my college audition on a pedal harp to learn the repertoire. And I had all of the technique in my hands. It was just the feet that needed to catch up. And I think building some strength, because my lever harp is a lot lower tension. So that took me quite a while, actually. It was probably the hardest physical challenge, is just building up the muscle to get the louder sound on the pedal harp. But yeah, I think that the pedals came easier than I was expecting, and that overall now, having done both of them for so long, I really think that pedals are a bit easier than changing lots of levers, because you can do them by feel. You don't have to look at your, you don't have to
or
move
lift
your eyes away.
You always have to lift and think, where am I going to create the gap? Yeah, absolutely. I came to the pedal harp after the lever harp as well. And so, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I often think, the pedal harp actually in a lot of these arrangements is easier. There's a lot of pedal harp stuff that's harder, mind you, as well, isn't there? They're just kind of two different beasts, aren't they?
Right. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, interesting. Well, maybe we should move to our first clip of your music and have a little listen. Now, this clip really, it was great because I always ask our guest artists, is there any videos that you particularly would like us to show? But I've already kind of got some set aside that I'm interested in. And I had this one set aside, and then you said maybe this one. Now, the reason I enjoyed this one is because of the way it opens and actually the visuals. And so we're going to watch just the opening little sequence. And then I'm interested to know about your creative process with regards to the video that you've made alongside your music. So let's have a listen, and then maybe you can tell us about that. Tell us about that piece.
So I love digging through these old collections of tunes. And the Simon Fraser collection was one that my harp teacher had an extra photocopy of years ago, and she just gave it to me. And so I had been playing through it, and I came across this piece, The Traveler Benighted in Snow. And I just loved the visual. I'm a very visual person, so as I'm learning pieces and listening to pieces, there's almost always some sort of a story or a visual or a mood. Like maybe a piece is just reminding me of a cloudy day, or maybe I have a very specific character that's walking down a certain street in France or sitting at a cafe or something like that. So I'm always telling my students these visual images to help them put the music into their music. And for this one, I was just picturing somebody traveling by themselves, and the snow, and it's getting dark. And then later in that collection, I think it's later, there's another tune called The Bonfire, which I loved. And it was a challenging piece for me. So also took me forever to learn it and feel like I could actually play it.
Mhm.
And those two put together created this wonderful image in my mind of somebody traveling late at night and they come across a bonfire. And in my mind, the bonfire is surrounded by friends, or new friends, perhaps, people that are open to making friends. And then also, I'd say behind this video that I was making, I grew up reading a lot of fantasy novels and Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia and all of this. And so just the contrast between life as a modern musician and then this idea of being a bard wandering around and playing for kings and nobles, and kind of just me as a modern pedal harpist, and then also thinking about or dreaming about what life would be like as an ancient bard. So all of that kind of combines into that video.
Amazing. That's so wonderful. You really did paint an amazing picture for us there. And everybody must go and look at the rest of the video because Stephanie explained it perfectly. She wanders in the wood with her harp on her back and then comes across a group of people and a dance ensues, and it's really good fun. It's a lovely video. I'm going to ask you about making videos because I think it's a funny thing. And so this is me asking a bit of a silly question, I guess. But sometimes we have to make a video for our music, and sometimes I just want to sit at the harp and play the harp, and the idea of becoming an actor is a little bit uncomfortable to me. And so I'm wondering how you feel about that. Is that something you step into quite naturally, that role of you being the wanderer in the woods and making the tea before you go, or is that something you feel a bit awkward about?
No, I think I've always been a performer, even, and maybe that comes from having started performing at such a young age, at 12. And I also performed at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival. So it's this big gathering, everyone's dressing up. It's almost more of a fantasy festival than a historical reenactment. But I started performing there when I was 12. And so that has always been kind of part of my identity of being a performer. I also think it's one of the best things I ever did in terms of becoming comfortable performing in front of people, because it is a performance setting, but it's also a background setting. And people are walking by and no one's like directly listening, but then sometimes they are. Anyway, what was I talking about? I lost track.
Making videos.
Yeah, being a performer. So for me, I just really want my audience to experience my visual for the music. And so as much as I can convey that, I love doing that part of it. What I don't like is all the technical work. The actual recording of the piece is very difficult for me because I don't love microphones. But your sound needs to be good for the music. You know, it's a music video. You need to have good sound. And then the camera angles and all those technical aspects are less fun.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a funny thing, isn't it? When you become a musician, you have to wear many hats. You have to either wear many hats or employ many people. And in my experience, most musicians can't employ many people. So they, by default, have to wear many hats.
Absolutely.
And so is that something that you embrace as a professional musician, or is it something you find you struggle with? We've had both discussions here with some people who do struggle with all the different hats and some people who love it.
I really love the variety. So the fact that sometimes I'm editing a video versus making an arrangement versus teaching versus performing versus just getting to talk about the process of being a musician. I love that variety. And I think if I was only a performer, only a teacher, I would miss that quite a bit. But it definitely has, yeah, it's challenges of just balancing everything and making sure that you're putting the proper emphasis. For me, I've never been a great practicer. Actually, I really struggle to practice enough. And so the answering emails or writing about my music or editing is much more likely to consume my time when really I should be spending time at the harp making the music. So I have to remind myself, go practice. Stephanie, go practice.
Well, it's hard to fit everything in. So, and it's really nice. I think a lot of our listeners will find that very refreshing, that you have to remind yourself to practice. Because I think sometimes, especially when we see a professional musician playing something that sounds probably in our minds flawless, even though we probably know it's not necessarily flawless and it's just the way they're presenting it. But I think that we can often assume that, you know, they enjoy practicing and they can practice for hours a day and it just comes naturally to them. But the truth is that it can be a struggle for professional musicians as well.
Absolutely. I find that the best way to motivate myself to practice is to have a deadline. So I have a concert coming up. That's the best motivation to practice. And there are some times where I have free time where I don't have any demands. I don't have to prepare for a concert in 2 weeks, or I'm not working on any new videos. And that I enjoy that free time to just do anything. But if I had too much free time, it really would result in me not spending that time at the harp. So deadlines and performances are really something that I need to keep me motivated, to keep me on track. And they help me persevere in that one piece that takes forever to learn, because it's so tempting to start something new. And I have many, many pieces that are half learned that I will someday perform. But it's hard to come back to those. There's always a new sparkly piece.
Yeah, shiny object syndrome. We know it well. We know it well in the How to Harp membership. We've all got music stands that are laden with too much music. But it's finding that balance, isn't it, of doing what excites you at that point in time and completing, seeing something through to the end. And it is in a balance, and it's important to do both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I have a system, a filing system, whereby I put things that I mean to return to. Like, this is definitely in my future. There's a little cubby in this is to learn, as opposed to just filed somewhere in my basement. It's like, if I get to it in my life, great. If I don't, fine. These are absolutely, we'll learn. We'll finish and perform. Yeah.
That's a great tip. We'll all take that away, I'm sure. With that in mind, talking about tips, if anyone does have any questions for Stephanie, we will go to a Q&A at the end of this interview. So please do pop them in the chat. William will be saving them for the end so we can ask Stephanie or what you guys want to know. And also talking about tips, you've mentioned it already during this interview, but you also teach as well as perform. And so our next video is a little clip of you giving some really excellent tips. So let's have a look at this video, and then you can tell us all about why this tip is so important to you.
Anyway, but it's just this really dense material. It feels really good. It's like one of those stress relief things, actually, in your hand. And she had me doing exercises, one of which was just to try and pinch this between each of my fingers. So thumb and second finger, thumb and third finger, all while keeping that joint engaged and bent a little bit. And now I can play harp and keep that joint bent because I have the muscles. Before, I was just helpless. I couldn't fix it on my own.
So who were you talking to help you?
I went to a physical therapist, or I think that was an occupational therapist. I've been to both many times over the course of my harp career. But when I was in university, I was developing some really severe pain at the base of my thumb, and then it was radiating up my arm and even back behind my shoulder blade. And so I was trying to get at the root of what was causing that pain. And I realized that as I was playing, I'd have a high thumb, but this joint here would be collapsing. And so just working to be able to stabilize this whole thumb section and to put pressure on the thumb without that joint collapsing. took a lot of work and professional help.
Mm. And I was really, really glad when you mentioned a number of times in this video how important it is to seek professional help, because there's so many people who come to me and I see going to other harpists who are suffering from pain, discomfort, and my first bit of advice is always go and see a medical professional. Yes, we can help you with posture and positioning and all these things, but you must make sure that the fundamentals of your body function are there, and we also need to know what we're working with. And it scares me when harpists don't say that. So I was so glad to hear you say that. So that's something that's important to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I have had a lot of physical challenges in my harp career, and yet I also have a lot of harp students who come and they have different pain, different symptoms, and I can't help them. And I want them to talk to somebody that can actually see, do you have serious problems that could be fixed more efficiently than just sitting up straight, or, what needs to happen here? Always the first thing. And then I also think that when you're seeking medical help, it's also good to just try to learn as much about whatever is happening as possible, to keep track of your symptoms, what makes it worse, what makes it better, because that helps them diagnose you. And it's hard work to actually notice what makes this worse, what makes this better. You have to keep track and pay attention. I don't like doing that, but it's important.
Of course, yeah. And you have personal experience on this, so maybe you can talk a little bit about your own personal diagnosis and that journey to finding that, and then helping yourself through that in your harping.
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, I had tendonitis in university, so that was probably my first interaction with physical therapists, occupational therapists, and they helped me so much. But then later, I think I was 22, I started having pretty severe pain in various joints in my body, and I went to the doctor, and it took a while to get the diagnosis, but eventually I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease. So it's different than osteoarthritis, which is caused by, specific joints being overworked or degrading in the cartilage or joint, whatever. I'm not a medical professional, but the rheumatoid arthritis is a little bit more systematic, causes inflammation in joints. And so that has been interesting. We'll say interesting in the Minnesota sense of the word, meaning not always pleasant
Of course.
journey. As a harpist, knowing that my hands were so important to me, and that is that's just going to affect how I'm able to play harp in the future. But initially, as a professional, I thought, I don't want anybody to know that I have this. I was worried that people wouldn't hire me, that they would just say, well, we're not going to be able to depend on Stephanie. And over time, especially I think as I was developing my YouTube channel and trying to think, why am I even, what is my goal on YouTube, aside from sharing my sheet music? There's a definite goal, but to really serve the harp community and see where is there a need, and what information do I have, or what skills and life experience do I have that I can help other people with. And I realized that I'm not the only person that's having pain as a musician, and we have pain, but we want to keep playing, and we want to do that wisely. And what can we do to just facilitate continuing to play despite physical challenges?
That's lovely. So you decided to open up about this because you wanted to help others.
Basically, yeah.
That's nice. That's really lovely. And I really feel that there's a lot of people in our community here in How to Harp who do struggle with pain or tension or injury, and I know that it will be helpful for them and comforting for them to know that a professional has gone through the same thing and that you're there offering advice and support. And we'll just echo the sentiments from before, that if anyone out there is struggling with pain, please do seek medical professional advice first and foremost, and then talk to a harpist. And give that harpist as well as much information as you can. If you have a medical diagnosis and a physiotherapist has told you to use your hands in a certain way, another motto of mine, there's always more than one way to do something, and that includes playing the harp. So work with what you've got in front of you and you can still make an amazing sound. So let's move on to listening to the final piece that we've got of you playing. And this is a funny one because I was looking through the videos and I thought, oh, there's a few ensemble pieces here. I think it would be really nice to show some of Stephanie's work that she's done, ensemble arrangements. And it took me a little while to notice that this is an ensemble of Stephanies, 4 Stephanies playing for us. So once we listen to this, it'd be great to hear, yes, about the arrangement and your work arranging for ensemble, but also about the technicalities of making a video like this. Let's have a watch. The Stephanie Quartet. What was the piece and the arrangement? Tell us about that first.
It's the Grenadier and the Lady, traditional English piece, and that is in Sylvia Woods's, or the tune, and Sylvia Woods's arrangement is in her Teach Yourself to Play the Folk Harp, which was one of the pieces that I learned when I was probably 9 or 10, and I've loved it ever since. There are some pieces that you learn and you kind of pass through them in your music journey and you never return, and there are others that you just keep playing. And I've played it at the Renaissance Festival for years and never written down an actual solo arrangement of it. But then I wanted to share it with my harp studio. We do a recital every spring and we do a harp ensemble for that. So I wrote the quartet and kind of encapsulated some of these ideas that I've been improvising with over the years.
Amazing.
And yeah, it's very fun.
Amazing. And we're going to pull your website up on screen so that people can find out more about what you are up to. Although people cannot purchase sheet music on your website, just like my website. I'm not here to judge. We both need to get our sheet music on the website. But where can they purchase your sheet music?
Currently, I have it for sale on Sheet Music Plus, Sheet Music Direct, and then I have all the public domain things up on Harp Column Music as well.
Amazing. And if anyone is having a little nosy through Stephanie's YouTube, a lot of the links to the sheet music are in the descriptions of the videos. And so it's really fun to have a little peruse, shiny object syndrome, and then you can purchase some music from there. Oh, so maybe you can tell us then about the making of that video. It does look like there's 4 of you in the one room.
It was really a challenge to film. Initially I wanted to get real people. It's actually a lot more fun to film it with friends, but then you need to have everybody learn the parts and you need to rehearse. And I just thought, oh, well, I'll just do it all myself as a professional musician. And I had seen videos online where people clone themselves and there are like 4 of them talking to each other. So I knew that it was technically possible. And so I found this software called CapCut, which I had not used previously, but had capacity to do that. And so I got my 1 month purchase of that to figure it out. And YouTube is always a great help in learning new skills. You just watch other people do it and then you mess around. And I think the hardest part for me was figuring out the spacing in my space, and there's one part in that video where you can actually see I'm leaning to turn a page and my arm goes through my next door self.
I didn't notice. I'm going to go back and
Just
watch
because,
now.
yes, I definitely, exceeded the allotment for that particular harp 3. Yeah, and the lighting, I had not observed that the harp casts a shadow. So there were just all these things that you film it, you do your best, and then you get to editing and you realize there are potential mistakes. But there's a tension as a professional of, this isn't the main focus. I need to make the video. I want it to be as good as possible, but it doesn't need to be perfect. It's for fun mostly and for example. So yeah, those errors are just more fun. They're like little Easter eggs. Go look for them.
That's such a nice way of thinking about it. I'm going to start thinking about it that way, because actually there is this video that went up. Should I share this? Well, I've started sharing it now, so I have to finish. But we share videos of me kind of demoing the pieces that are learnt in the How to Harp membership. And there's one that went up recently, and Willie was showing me it before he put it up. And of course, there's a lot of lever changes in one of the sections, and I have this little pause. There's not a mistake, there's not a wrong note, but there's a little pause as I go to change the lever, and I'm like, oh, Willie, we're gonna have to redo that video, that pause. It's so hard not to be a perfectionist, especially when it's videoed. But you're totally right. It's if that was live music, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. Nobody would notice the pause, but it does feel different when it's a video. But I'm going to start thinking about it as Easter eggs.
Well, and I think it's important, even as professionals, for people to know that we're human and that we do make mistakes. And I do think there's this unrealistic expectation that a lot of my students have for themselves, that I'm going to play this perfectly if I prepare enough. Which there are certainly times where I have played things perfectly. I'll say it that way. But the majority of the time, there are Easter eggs in there.
Nice. I like that. I like the Easter eggs. I like that. I have one more question for you before we move to the question. Have we got some questions come in? Yeah? Okay, great. So one more question from me, and that is about your interest in Celtic music, because obviously I'm from Scotland. My degree was actually in lever harp. It's in Scottish music. And so I'm interested to know what attracts you to Scotland and Ireland and its music. And have you ever visited us over here?
Yes, actually, well, I'll answer that first. Just once, though I certainly want to return. I attended the Edinburgh International Harp Festival in 2018.
Nice.
And that was an amazing experience. Going to a harp festival in general, I think, is something every harpist should do if they're able to, just because it's wonderful to be surrounded by other people doing the same thing as you, and you see the variety and the diversity and how other people are good at other things than you and you're good at other things than they are. But just the scope of that festival and the high quality of the performers and teachers, it was very inspirational. And then I also spent a week hiking, kind of based in Fort William, but going out and around on day trips around there. And that was extremely inspirational as well.
Amazing.
So beautiful.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. That's lovely. We'll come back and visit again. Yes, it will happen.
I think, though, when I first started at age 7, like I said, we were working on a lot of traditional music via written sheet music and Sylvia Woods' arrangements. And then I kind of diverted into classical music at university. And then a few years, it was 2014, I think 2014, the Minnesota Scottish Harp Competition needed a new director, somebody who would run it. And so Anne Heyman, who is a wonderful wire strung performer, and she's from Minnesota, she actually just called me. And I was so starstruck because I had heard her name and she's famous in the whole world. I was like, she's on the phone, she's talking to me. And she had seen that I had been involved in the Scottish competitions as a kid. And she asked me if I would be interested in making that happen in Minnesota. So I was directing that fair or that competition for a few years in Minnesota. And in that process of digging into the Scottish music more, I realized if I made a list of all of my favorite Celtic music, my favorites were all Scottish, like all of them. And I love Irish music too, but I just realized there is definitely a bias in my heart. The ones that tug more on me are the Scottish ones, both the happy ones and the sad ones, just across the board. So I decided, well, I should dig into that more. Yeah, and then having been involved in the competition on the local level, I decided I wanted to try and go for the national championship in the US as well. And so that was a big inspiration. Like I said, deadlines and competitions, concerts are really motivational to me. And then also I learned through that process and going to workshops and meeting the judges that I am capable of learning things by ear, which is not something I thought I could do. I had always just read sheet music. I can sight read really, really well. I never quite understood the reason behind learning by ear. And it was very challenging. So I felt like, well, I can sight read through it in 5 minutes, or I can learn it by ear for it. It would take me an hour, and great travail. And so I feel like I've still been getting deeper and deeper into that world and really recognizing the benefits of learning by ear and how much you can absorb where you don't have to struggle with the counting and feel and the lilt or the phrasing. That's just, it's in your mind. And the only thing that you need to worry about is how do I make my fingers do that, as opposed to constructing it kind of all from paper. So that's, I'd say, a journey I'm still on.
I love that. I love that because obviously, like I say, I studied Scottish music. So my background is oral learning. I can sight read music, but I'd much rather learn something by ear and soak it all up, and also know and understand the context and the history and the culture that comes behind the tunes. That's so important as a folk musician to know and understand, because that's what it's all seeped in. So it's lovely to hear that you're embracing the oral learning.
Well, and also even knowing that I can learn it, that you don't have to be good at it the first time in order to do it, that it's a skill like any other, that if you practice it, you get better.
Absolutely. Amazing. Oh, it's been lovely having a chat with you. Let's see what our audience would like to ask you. We've got 2 questions for you here, so let's bring them up on screen. So Linda, and we know it's sunny where Linda is, she already told us that. She's asking you, what harp do you like to play now? I think this was asked when we were talking about pedal and lever harp. Do you have a preference now about what you play?
It depends on the repertoire. So I absolutely have a piece, and many pieces where it's like, I would never play this piece on my lever harp, or I would never play this piece on my pedal harp, just because they sound wrong. I love the rich and dense, big sound of the pedal harp. And then I love how my lever harp, my main lever harp, let's see, it's this one. My Jolie, it's a Music Makers. And it has a much brighter, clearer sound. It has kind of a pretty long sustain for a lever harp. So when I'm playing Celtic music, I absolutely prefer the lever harp. And then, Bach, I probably do prefer my pedal harp, but not exclusively. It's okay to do Bach on either.
Nice. I like that. Great question, Linda. Thanks for that. And we've got Dora. I've followed some of Stephanie's videos and I'm a fan for sure. Oh, that's lovely. How did your strings behave during the Christmas video in front of the roaring fire? I saw that video as well, but I didn't think it would be appropriate. I think it is too early to share the Christmas video.
Is she asking about the outdoor scene, or is it an indoor?
It's inside and there's like a big fire beside you. The one that I saw was the harp going
Like
out of
fireplace.
tune. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that I'm very careful about the amount of time that I leave my harp there. You know, it's for the video, and then I'm moving it away. Um, and yes, it definitely goes out of tune. But I do pre-record the sound on all of my videos, just because it's really hard to ensure that you're going to get good sound. And then you're doing different takes from different angles, and so the timing needs to all line up. So I've definitely been playing along with the sound, and my real harp is much less beautiful due to tuning than the audio that I'm hearing. Oh dear, that's my stove, which has been misbehaving. We're getting a new one on Wednesday.
Okay.
I'm going to briefly go cancel that beeping.
You do
I'll
it.
be
You
right
do
back.
it. You do you, girl. Oh dear. Well, Stephanie's away fixing her. So yeah, I was going to say I saw Melanie's. You are so right. Me and Melanie, we're kindred spirits. I watched the Christmas videos. I watched lots of the Christmas videos. But I thought some people might object if we shared a Christmas video. Melanie's saying it's never too early for Christmas videos.
Mm-hmm. I have a good friend, Hannah Flowers, who's working on a Christmas album. So, and I'm playing a duet with her. So we've been rehearsing God Rest You Merry Gentlemen the last week or so. Yeah.
Lovely. I love Christmas music. I could honestly play it all year round. It's almost time for the Christmas collaboration. Anyway, we love Christmas music. We love all you guys, and we love your music as well, Stephanie. Thank you so much for sharing with us tonight. We've got another question. I thought you said there was 2 questions. Oh, she snuck one in, that Linda. Look at that. Do you have a favourite Celtic piece that you play?
That's so hard. So hard. I will say that the one that has, oh goodness. Star of the County Down has been a favorite for many years in terms of, it's the piece that I go to when people say, oh, you play the harp, can you play us something? You know, it's always nice to have a piece that's just always eternally in your fingers. You can sit down, play it, and not worry. So that's maybe one of the ones that's lasted the 30 years that I've been playing.
It's hard. There's another question snuck in. Okay. It is hard to choose just one. And it also depends on your mood, doesn't it? What you want to play.
Absolutely.
Okay. Come on, Mung. What's your question? I also followed some of your harp videos outside. What's the process like when you plan to record outside?
I don't record outside because I don't have, well, I have a pickup on my harp, but I don't like the sound of the recording if I go through the pickup. And so I've just in the past always recorded in my harp studio, and then I'm basically finger syncing when I'm playing outside.
Yeah. So do you actually have a microphone in your ear? Do you have one in your ear when you're finger syncing?
Usually I just have my computer sitting under my chair and it's playing it loud. I do like practicing outside though. From playing at the Renaissance Festival, which is an outdoor festival, there's just something really magical about the wind through the strings, and it's kind of joining your own music. And so when I stopped playing at the Renaissance Festival, I missed that.
Yeah. Lovely. Have we got through all the questions now? Can we bring Stephanie's website up again? So if anyone is interested in watching more of these outdoor videos or Christmas videos, you can head over to Stephanie's YouTube. But of course, lots of information about her work, her teaching, her performing is all on her website, which you guys can see below. Now, if you do head over to her YouTube channel, then do make sure to purchase some music and fill up your music stand with some amazing new arrangements from Stephanie. Now, before we finish up for the evening, Stephanie, you are our special guest in the How to Harp membership this month, and we are going to be treated to a concert this weekend and a workshop next weekend. Can you give us a little sneak peek? Tell us a bit about what we maybe can expect in the concert and what we're going to be learning in the workshop?
Yeah. For the concert, there will definitely be some Scottish music. Absolutely. I'd say my current favorites in the rotation of music ever rotating. But I really love variety as well. So there'll be some surprises that are not perhaps what you would expect on the lever harp, or maybe you will. We'll see. You'll see. Let me know. And then for the workshop, I am probably, my favorite topic is dynamics. So we'll be talking about phrasing, expression, dynamics. And I'm always telling my students that for me, playing with expression is more important than playing with all the correct notes. I would much rather hear somebody play a piece with some mistakes, but with feeling and variety, you know, like full palette of colors, really brilliant, really beautiful soft tones, everything in between, than to have all the right notes, but just feel kind of medium in the middle. So we'll be exploring that.
Amazing. And I have to say, you're already very popular in the community because you gave us your PDF handout weeks ago. Sometimes it's very hard to get that PDF handout off of the guest artist. Sometimes it comes just before, sometimes it comes during the workshop, and sometimes it comes after the workshop, but yours has been in there for a while, and we love that. So thank you, Stephanie.
Good to know.
Oh, well, it's been so lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time, and we're so looking forward to hearing you perform this weekend.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this has been great.
Great. Well, if you guys have enjoyed tonight's interview as much as I have, we do have a Beyond the Harp interview once a month with the guest artist who's with us in How to Harp. And of course, Stephanie and all of our other guest artists, they join us in the How to Harp membership for a concert and for a workshop. And if you're interested in checking out the How to Harp membership, then you can see our website up above and you can have a look at that. Now, we do have some special offers running at the moment, so definitely have a little check out of that membership and maybe come and join us. And all that's left for me to say is, well, a very happy week to you all, and of course, happy harping to everyone.